Isabella Carter's legs trembled as she inched along the crumbling ledge, her fingers clawing at jagged rock, while vertigo threatened to pull her into the abyss. Every instinct screamed at her to climb back up,
I can do
to
this.
save herself. But 30 feet below her dangled a stranger. A beautiful, bleeding stranger whose dark eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that ignited something primal in her chest. "Don't!" he commanded, his accented voice cutting through the wind. "You'll die trying." But Isabella had never been good at following orders, especially when every fibre of her being suddenly understood with terrifying clarity that this man, this impossible, infuriating man, who should be a stranger, was somehow meant to be hers. The rope burned her palms, the cliff crumbled beneath her feet, and as she reached for his hand, the world tilted into a future neither of them could escape. Welcome to our channel. You are special. Before we continue, please hit that like button and subscribe. It truly helps us grow and create more stories like this for you. Your support means everything to this channel. 4 hours earlier, Isabella wiped down table 12 for the third time that hour, her smile professionally frozen despite the ache in her feet. Summit Ridge Resort wasn't the worst place she'd ever worked. That honour belonged to the truck stop diner where a customer once threw coffee at her, but it was a close second. The wealthy guests treated servers like living furniture, and the tips rarely matched the Mountain View prices. "Isabella, you're needed at the manager's office." Her co-worker, Tasha, appeared beside her, expression sympathetic. "Rick wants to see you." Her stomach dropped. Rick Paulson only called people to his office for one reason. "What did I do this time?" "Apparently, you smiled too much at a guest yesterday. His wife complained that you were inappropriate." Tasha rolled her eyes. "As if you'd ever—" "Of course." Isabella untied her apron, exhaustion flooding through her. "Because black women aren't allowed to be friendly without being labelled something." Rick's office smelled like cheap cologne and disappointment. He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, wearing the expression of a man who enjoyed small amounts of power too much. "Miss Carter, we've received a complaint about your conduct with a male guest." "Let me guess," Isabella said, keeping her voice even despite the anger simmering beneath. "I was polite to someone and his insecure wife decided I was flirting." "Your attitude right now proves you lack the professionalism required." "My attitude? I work doubles to cover rent. I haven't taken a sick day in 8 months. I smile until my face hurts because you told us pleasantness is mandatory. But sure, let's talk about my attitude." Rick's face reddened. "You're suspended for 3 days without pay. Maybe that will teach you some respect." The dismissal was clear. Isabella stood, dignity wrapped around her like armour, and walked out. She grabbed her coat from her locker, ignored Tasha's worried questions, and headed for the hiking trail that wound behind the resort. She needed air, space, to scream at the universe that had given her a nursing degree she couldn't afford to complete, a mother battling lupus who needed expensive medication, and a dead-end job that was slowly crushing her spirit. The November air bit at her exposed skin as she climbed higher. The trail was technically closed for the season, too dangerous with the early snow, but Isabella had been hiking these mountains since childhood. She knew every switchback, every scenic overlook where the valley spread below like a promise of something better. She didn't know she was about to meet her destiny in the worst possible way. The scream cut through the silence like a knife. Isabella froze mid-step, heart hammering. It had come from the direction of Eagle's Peak, a treacherous outcropping that jutted over a 300-foot drop. No, one should be up there. The trail had been closed for weeks. She ran. Branches tore at her jacket. Her sensible work shoes slipped on patches of ice. But she kept it moving, driven by something deeper than logic. A pull in her chest that said, "Hurry, hurry. He needs you." When she reached the cliff edge, her blood turned to ice. fresh gouges marked where someone had gone over, and clinging to a narrow ledge 20 feet down, barely visible through the swirling snow, was a man. Isabella's fear of heights slammed into her like a physical force. She'd avoided balconies since childhood, couldn't even watch movies with cliff scenes without her palms sweating, but this man was dying. "Hey!" she shouted, dropping to her knees at the edge. "Can you hear me?" The man's head lifted slowly. Even from this distance, even covered in blood and dirt, he was striking. Sharp features, dark hair plastered to his forehead, and eyes that seemed to look straight through her soul. "Go away," he said in accented English, his voice rough with pain. "Call for help. Don't come down here. Rescue services won't make it in time. The snow's getting worse." Isabella scanned the area, spotting an emergency supply box bolted to a nearby tree. She sprinted to it, hands shaking as she pulled out climbing rope and carabiners. Her phobia screamed at her to stop. Every nerve in her body revolted at the idea of going over that edge. But his eyes, God, his eyes held so much pain and something else. Recognition? Impossible. She'd never seen him before. "What's your name?" she called as she secured the rope around a sturdy pine tree, fingers fumbling with knots her father had taught her years ago. "Minjun. Kang Minjun." He coughed, the sound wet and wrong. "Please, you don't have to." "Yeah, I do. I'm Isabella. Try not to die before I get there." She forced humour into her voice, hoping it would mask her terror as she tied the rope around her waist. Isabella had never been more afraid in her life than the moment she went over that cliff edge. Her vision swam, vertigo clawed at her mind, every instinct screamed to go back up. But she focused on the rope, on moving one hand down, then the other, legs braced against the rock face. "You're insane," Minjun said when she was close enough to see the pain etched into his face. "You're going to kill yourself." Probably. Her foot slipped, and for one heart-stopping second, she dangled in space. When she found purchase again, her laugh was slightly hysterical. "But I have excellent life insurance, so my mum will be fine." "This isn't funny. It's either laugh or scream. I'm choosing laugh." Isabella reached the ledge beside him, and the world spun dangerously. The drop below seemed to reach up with hungry fingers. "Okay. Assessment time." "What hurts?" "Everything. Ribs definitely broken. Left ankle is wrong. Head injury, obviously." His accent was crisp, educated, at odds with the blood streaking down his face. "You need to go back. Up. Leave me. Not happening." "Can you move your arms?" "Yes, but..." "Good. I'm going to loop this rope around you. When I say climb, you climb. I'll guide you." Her hands shook as she worked, both from cold and terror. "On 3. 1, 2... Wait! Who are you, really?" Minjun's eyes bored into hers with unsettling intensity. "Did they send you?" "Did who send me? I'm a waitress who was walking off a bad day. Nobody sent me. You climbed down a cliff with clearly no training. That's either bravery or stupidity. Can't it be both?" Isabella finished securing the rope. "Now stop interrogating your rescuer and start climbing." They moved together, inch by agonizing inch. Isabella called out handholds, braced him when his injured ankle gave out, and tried not to think about the void beneath them. Her muscles screamed, blood seeped through her torn jeans where rocks had gouged her knees. Halfway up, Minjun's grip slipped, his weight jerked against her, and Isabella felt herself sliding backward toward the edge. Her fingernails tore as she clawed for purchase. The rope bit into her ribs. "Let go!" Minjun shouted. "Let me fall! Save yourself!" "Shut up!" Isabella found a foothold and hauled them both upward with strength she didn't know she possessed. "I didn't risk my life so you could give up now. Move!" Something shifted in his expression. shock melting into something softer, more dangerous. They climbed. When they finally collapsed onto solid ground at the top, both gasping and shaking, Isabella rolled onto her back and stared at the darkening sky. Snow fell on her face, each flake a tiny kiss from a universe that had decided not to kill her today. "You saved my life," Minjun said beside her, his breathing laboured. "Why?" "Because letting you die wasn't an option." Isabella turned her head to look at him. Up close, he was even more striking. High cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. "Why were you up here alone?" "This trail's been closed for weeks. I needed to think, to escape." His jaw tightened. "Didn't you expect the path to collapse?" "We need to get you to a hospital. Multiple broken bones, possible internal bleeding, definite concussion." Isabella struggled to sit up, every muscle protesting. "Can you walk?" Minjun tried to rise and immediately collapsed back with a curse in Korean. His ankle was already swelling to twice its normal size. "Okay, plan B. I'll call for..." Isabella reached for her phone and found a cracked screen displaying "no service." "Of course, we're too high up." "My phone." Minjun gestured weakly to his jacket pocket. "Try mine." Isabella retrieved it, surprised by the high-end device that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But the screen showed the same message: no service. "We're going to have to hike down to where there's reception." She assessed his injuries with a clinical eye, falling back on the nursing training she'd had to abandon. "I can fashion a splint for your ankle, but those ribs worry me." "I've survived worse." The words came out flat, almost empty. "I'm sure you have." Isabella stripped off her flannel shirt, revealing the tank top beneath, and began tearing the fabric into strips. "You strike me as someone familiar with danger." "What makes you say that?" "The way you looked at me when I first came down. You thought I was there to hurt you, not help you." She began wrapping his ankle with practiced efficiency. "And you're wearing a $10,000 watch while hiking a closed trail alone. Either you're stupid rich or you're running from something." Minjun's laugh was bitter. "Both. Mostly the second one." "Want to talk about it?" "No." "Fair enough." Isabella finished the splint and helped him into her flannel as a makeshift sling for his ribs. The intimacy of the gesture, her hands on his chest, his breath warm against her face, sent electricity through her. "But for what it's worth, whatever you're running from, you're alive now. That's something." "Thanks to you." His good hand caught hers, grip surprisingly strong despite his injuries. "I owe you a debt I can never repay." "Just don't die on the hike down. That's payment enough." It took 3 hours to descend the mountain. Minjun leaned heavily on Isabella, and she bore his weight despite her own exhaustion. The storm intensified, turning the trail treacherous. Twice they had to stop while Minjun vomited from the concussion. Once, Isabella had to half carry him when his ankle gave out completely. But they made it. When they finally stumbled into the resort parking lot, Isabella's phone buzzed to life with 15 missed calls. She ignored them all and dialed 911. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics swarmed Minjun, efficiently loading him onto a gurney while peppering Isabella with questions she barely registered. Adrenaline was leaving her system, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion and shock. "Miss, you need medical attention." "Two," one paramedic said, gesturing to her bloodied hands and the ugly bruise forming on her cheek where she'd smacked against the cliff. "I'm fine. Just take care of him." "Isabella?" Minjun's voice stopped her as they wheeled him toward the ambulance. "What's your last name?" "Carter." "Why?" "I need to find you, to thank you properly." "You just did." She managed a tired smile. "Get better, Minjun." As the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing into the night, Isabella stood in the falling snow and wondered why letting him go felt like losing something precious she hadn't known she was searching for. Isabella's studio apartment had never felt smaller. She stood under a scalding shower, watching blood and dirt swirl down the drain, and tried to process the last 6 hours of her life. She'd saved a man from certain death, a beautiful, mysterious man who looked at her like she was either his salvation or his doom. She couldn't decide which. Her phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Valencia, her best friend and self-appointed life coach, had been calling non-stop since Isabella had texted that she was home safe. "Girl, you better start explaining," Valencia said the moment Isabella answered. "You text me, saved a man from a cliff, I'm fine, and then go radio silent for 4 hours. It's been a day, V." Isabella wrapped herself in her ratty bathrobe and collapsed onto her futon. "I got suspended from work, climbed down a cliff despite my crippling fear of heights, and saved someone who might be either a billionaire or a spy. Back up. Start from the beginning. Use complete sentences." Isabella told her everything. Rick's discrimination, the closed trail, the scream that changed everything. She described Minjun's injuries, his suspicious questions, the way his hand had felt gripping hers on the climb up. Wait, Valencia interrupted. "You, Isabella, I won't even go on the Ferris wheel, Carter, climbed down a cliff, a literal cliff. I know it doesn't make sense, but V, when I heard him scream, something just..." Isabella struggled for words. It was like my body moved before my brain caught up, like I had to save him or I'd regret it forever. "That's called destiny, babe, or at least really good chemistry." Valencia's tone shifted to business mode. "Did you get his last name? I need to Google this mysterious cliff man." Kang Minjun. He had a Korean accent, spoke perfect English though, expensive clothes, fancy watch. Definitely not a normal hiker. The sound of typing filled the line, then Valencia's sharp intake of breath. "Bella. Oh my God. Bella." "What?" "Kang Minjun. Your cliff guy. He's the founder and CEO of Kang Technologies. He's one of the youngest billionaires in the world. Tech genius. Created that security software that everyone uses. He's worth like $12 billion. Isabella's apartment tilted slightly. Billion? With a B? Multiple Bs. And get this, there's been stuff in the news lately. His company's going through some hostile takeover attempts, corporate espionage, death threats. Some people think it's connected to his family in Seoul. Valencia paused dramatically. "Isabella, you might have saved a man people are actively trying to kill. That would explain the paranoia. He asked if someone sent me to hurt him." Isabella's mind raced. But why would a billionaire be hiking alone on a closed trail? Maybe he was hiding, or meeting someone, or... Valencia gasped. "What if he staged the whole thing to meet you, like a billionaire version of a meet-cute? V, he had broken ribs and a fractured ankle. Nobody stages that. Rich people are weird. Remember that documentary about the guy who..." A knock at Isabella's door cut Valencia off mid-sentence. "Hold on, someone's here." Isabella approached the door cautiously. It was nearly midnight. Nobody visited this neighborhood without good reason. She peered through the peephole and nearly dropped her phone. Standing in her dingy hallway, looking completely out of place in an expensive coat, was a petite Korean woman with severe features and an expression that could cut glass. Behind her stood 2 large men in dark suits who radiated danger. "Isabella Carter," the woman called through the door. "My name is Park Ji-ah. I work for Kang Minjun. He asked me to find you." Isabella's heart hammered. "V, I'll call you back. Don't you dare hang up on..." She ended the call and opened the door to chain lock width. "How did you find my address?" "Mr. Kang has resources." Jia's smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. "He wanted me to ensure you received proper medical care and compensation for your heroic actions today. May I come in?" "It's kind of late for house calls." Mr. Kang was quite insistent that I check on your welfare immediately. GR's tone suggested she was used to being obeyed. He's currently at Cedar Sinai Medical Center, refusing pain medication until he knows you're safe. So if you could spare a few minutes, I'd appreciate it. Against her better judgment, Isabella unlocked the chain and let them in. The two bodyguards remained in the hallway, which was both reassuring and terrifying. GR swept into the tiny apartment with the air of someone cataloguing every detail for future reference. Her gaze lingered on the medical textbooks stacked beside Isabella's futon, the second-hand furniture, the bills organised on the kitchen counter. "You're a student?" Had to drop out." Isabella crossed her arms defensively. "Look, I appreciate Mr. Kang checking on me, but I'm fine. Tell him I hope he recovers well. He'd prefer to tell you himself." GR pulled an envelope from her designer handbag. "He asked me to give you this and to ensure you have no objections to a visit from him once he's released from the hospital, likely tomorrow afternoon." "Visit? Here?" Isabella gestured at her cramped studio. "Why would a billionaire want to visit this place?" "Mr. Kang is very particular about debts. In Korean culture, when someone saves your life, it creates a bond, an obligation." GR's expression softened slightly. "He would consider it dishonourable not to thank you properly. He thanked me already, multiple times while I was helping him down the mountain. Nevertheless," GR placed the envelope on Isabella's counter. "There's compensation inside for your injuries and time. Consider it a gesture of gratitude, not charity." After GR left, Isabella stood in her silent apartment holding the envelope like it might explode. Part of her wanted to throw it away unopened. Taking money felt wrong somehow, but rent was due in 5 days, and she'd just been suspended without pay. She opened it. The check inside had so many zeros, Isabella had to count them 3 times to believe what she was seeing. $50,000. Her legs gave out. She sat hard on the futon, staring at the number that represented more money than she'd earned in the past 2 years combined. There was a note too, written in precise handwriting. "Isabella, this cannot repay the debt I owe you, but please accept it as acknowledgement that your bravery saved my life. The doctors say I would have died from internal bleeding within the hour if you hadn't gotten me down the mountain. I would very much like to see you again, to thank you properly and to understand why you risked everything for a stranger. If you're willing, I'll visit tomorrow at 2 p.m. If you'd prefer I stay away, I'll respect your wishes, but I hope you'll see me. Minjun." Isabella read it 5 times, heart pounding harder with each pass. This was insane. Billionaires didn't show up at studio apartments in sketchy neighbourhoods. They sent fruit baskets and generic thank you cards, not personal notes and small fortunes. She should tell him not to come, should deposit this check and move on with her life. Instead, she texted Valencia. "He's coming here tomorrow. What do I wear when a billionaire visits?" The response was immediate. "Everything. Tell me everything. Then we're going shopping. Also, I told you it was destiny." Isabella lay awake most of the night, the check on her nightstand and Minjun's note clutched in her hand, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Isabella spent the morning cleaning her apartment with manic energy, trying to make the tiny space look less depressing. She shoved medical textbooks into closets, organised her mismatched dishes, and attempted to hide the water stain on her ceiling with a strategically placed poster. Valencia arrived at noon with an armful of clothes and makeup. "You're not wearing those," she said, pointing at Isabella's jeans and oversized sweater. "This man is worth billions. You need to look like you belong in his world." "I don't belong in his world. That's kind of the point." "Bella, he's coming to your world. The least you can do is meet him halfway." Valencia pulled out a simple but elegant navy dress that somehow managed to look casual and sophisticated. "Try this, and let me do your makeup." "I don't know why this is such a big deal. He's just saying thank you." "Nobody, and I mean nobody, sends $50,000 and shows up in person just to say thanks. Valencia began working on Isabella's face with practiced efficiency. This man is interested, and from what I'm reading online, Kang Minjun doesn't show interest in anyone. He's basically a hermit billionaire. Maybe he's just nice. Nice people exist, but nice billionaires, those are unicorns, and this unicorn is coming to your apartment at 2 p.m, so we're making sure you look amazing. At 1:55 p.m, Isabella stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves in all the right ways. Valencia had done something magical with her makeup that made her eyes seem larger, more luminous. Her natural curls were tamed into a soft halo around her face. I look like someone else, Isabella whispered. You look like yourself, but the version that knows she's beautiful. Valencia squeezed her shoulder. Now I'm going to hide in your bedroom so I can spy through the crack in the door. V! What? I need to see this billionaire up close. It's for research purposes. At exactly 2:00 p.m, there was a knock on the door. Isabella took a deep breath, sent up a quick prayer to whoever was listening, and opened it. Minjun stood in her hallway, leaning on a cane, his left ankle in a walking boot. He wore dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her rent, with a leather jacket draped over his shoulders because his wrapped ribs wouldn't allow him to put it on properly, but it was his face that stole her breath. Without the blood and dirt, he was devastating. Sharp jawline, full lips, eyes so dark they seemed black, and that intense gaze that made her feel like he could see straight into her soul. Isabella. Her name in his accent sounded like music. Thank you for seeing me. You sent a $50,000 check. Seemed rude not to. She stepped back, gesturing him inside. Come in. Careful of the... She winced as he navigated the uneven threshold. Sorry, the building's old. It has character. Minjun's eyes swept the space, and Isabella tried to see it through his perspective. Threadbare carpet, mismatched furniture, a kitchen that was really just a hot plate and mini fridge. How are your injuries? GR said you refused medical treatment. I'm fine, just some scrapes and bruises, nothing that needs a hospital. Isabella gestured to her futon. You should sit. Those ribs must be killing you. If you're loving this story so far, please take 2 seconds to like, comment, subscribe and share. It helps us reach more viewers and keeps this content coming. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel. He lowered himself carefully onto the futon, a slight grimace crossing his features. 3 cracked ribs, fractured ankle, mild concussion and internal bruising. The doctors wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Let me guess, you signed yourself out against medical advice. I needed to see you. His directness made her pulse skip. To thank you properly and to understand why you risked your life for mine. I told you yesterday, letting you die wasn't an option. Isabella sat in her desk chair, maintaining distance. Anyone would have done the same. No, his voice was flat, certain. Most people would have called for help and waited. You climbed down a cliff despite clearly being terrified of heights. GR did a background check. You had me investigated. For my protection and yours, I needed to know if you were... He paused, seeming to weigh his words. If you were genuine, if someone sent you to get close to me. Paranoid much? When people have tried to kill you, paranoia becomes survival. Minjun's expression hardened. My company is currently under attack from multiple directions. Hostile takeover attempts, corporate espionage, actual threats to my life. 2 weeks ago, someone tampered with my car's brakes. Last month, my apartment was broken into. Isabella's stomach dropped. And you think I might be part of that? I did. Until GR's report showed you're a waitress working 3 jobs, to support your mother's medical care, that you dropped out of nursing school to help your family, that you volunteer at a free clinic on weekends despite barely being able to afford your own rent. His eyes softened. You're exactly what you appear to be, impossibly brave and probably too selfless for your own good. I'm not selfless. Isabella struggled for words. I saw someone who needed help. That's all. That's everything. Minjun leaned forward, wincing slightly. Isabella, in my world, people don't help unless they want something. Nobody risks their life for a stranger unless there's an angle. But you did. You climbed down that cliff knowing you might die, and you asked for nothing in return. I don't want anything. I know. That's what makes you dangerous. His slight smile was devastating. You've destroyed my entire worldview in one afternoon. Sounds like your worldview needed destroying. Perhaps. He pulled a folder from his jacket, which brings me to why I'm really here. The check was compensation for your physical injuries and time. This, he opened the folder, revealing legal documents, is something else. Isabella's eyes scanned the papers, her heart stopping as she understood what she was reading. This is a contract to pay off my mother's medical debt. All of it. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. And tuition for me to return to nursing school, and a year's rent paid in advance. Minjun, this is over $200,000. $237,416, he corrected. I had my accountants run the numbers. I can't accept this. Why not? Because it's too much. Because I barely know you. Because... Her voice cracked. Because nothing is free. What do you want from me? Minjun was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost vulnerable. I want to understand what it feels like to be saved. Not just my life, but... He gestured vaguely at himself. For the past 5 years, I've been so focused on my company, on survival, on winning, that I forgot what it means to connect with another person. But yesterday, when you came down that cliff, he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. Something shifted, like I'd been asleep and suddenly woke up. That's the concussion talking. Is it? Then why can't I stop thinking about you? Why does the idea of never seeing you again feel like dying all over again? He stood carefully, moving to kneel in front of her chair, despite the obvious pain it caused. Isabella Carter, I owe you my life. In Korean culture, that creates a bond called yunin, a debt that can never truly be repaid. Let me try. Isabella looked down at him, this impossible, beautiful, broken billionaire kneeling before her, and felt something crack open in her chest. Stand up. You're going to hurt yourself. Not until you accept. This is emotional blackmail. This is gratitude. His hand found hers, and electricity sparked where their skin touched. Please, let me help you the way you helped me. Isabella stared at their joined hands, at the contract that represented freedom from the debt that had been crushing her family for years, at the man who looked at her like she'd hung the moon. If I accept, she said slowly, what happens next? Whatever you want. I'll leave you alone if that's what you prefer. Or, his thumb stroked across her knuckles, you could let me take you to dinner. Let me show you who I am beyond the headlines and the money. Let me know the woman brave enough to defy death for a stranger. Just dinner? Just dinner, I promise. Isabella knew she should say no, should take the contract, thank him, and send him back to his billionaire world. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability beneath the intensity, she found herself nodding. One dinner, but I'm paying for my half. Minjun's laugh was surprised, genuine. With what? I'm paying off all your debt. Then I'll get a new job and pay you back slowly. You're impossible, says the man who showed up at my apartment with a $250,000 contract. Fair point. He stood with effort, still holding her hand. Tomorrow night, there's a Korean restaurant in Little Tokyo I think you'd like. Tomorrow's Sunday, I have... She stopped, remembering she was suspended. Actually, tomorrow works. Perfect. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent heat flooding through her. Until tomorrow, Isabella. After he left, Valencia burst from the bedroom, phone in hand. I recorded everything. That was the most romantic thing I've ever witnessed in my life. Bella, you have to marry him. V, it's one dinner. It starts with one dinner. Then it's coffee. Then weekend trips. Then suddenly, you're Mrs. Kang, living in a mansion and funding non-profits. Valencia flopped onto the futon. I'm calling it now. This man is going to change your entire life. Isabella looked at the contract on her desk, at the future it represented, and wondered if maybe Valencia was right. She had no idea how right she was about to be proven. The restaurant Minjun chose was intimate, family-owned, with paper lanterns casting warm light over dark wooden tables. Isabella felt out of place in Valencia's borrowed dress, but Minjun's eyes when he saw her made her feel like royalty. You look beautiful, he said, standing despite his cane to pull out her chair. You clean up pretty well yourself. And he did. Dark slacks, crisp white shirt, that intensity dialed back just enough to seem human instead of otherworldly. The owner rushed over the moment they sat, speaking rapid Korean to Minjun with what sounded like concern. Minjun responded in the same language, his tone soothing, and the woman's expression shifted to warmth as she looked at Isabella. Mrs. Park wants to know if you're the woman who saved my life, Minjun translated. News of my accident has spread through the Korean community. Tell her I just helped a little. He spoke in Korean again, and Mrs. Park laughed, patting Isabella's hand before disappearing into the kitchen. What did you say? That you're being modest, that you risked your life for a stranger and asked for nothing in return, that you're extraordinary. His eyes held hers, all true. You're good at making me uncomfortable. I'm good at telling the truth. There's a difference. He poured tea with his good hand, the gesture somehow intimate. Tell me about nursing school. Why did you choose it? My mum got sick when I was 16. Lupus. I watched nurses work miracles in the hospital and I thought, Isabella wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I thought if I could learn what they knew, I could save people, keep families from falling apart the way mine almost did. But you had to drop out. Medical bills ate everything, student loans stacked up. I made it through 2 years before I had to choose between finishing school and keeping my mum alive. She shrugged, trying to hide the pain. Easy choice, really. Except it's destroying you. His observation was gentle but unflinching. You're working yourself to exhaustion at jobs that undervalue you, putting everyone else first and slowly losing pieces of yourself. Spoken like someone who's never had to sacrifice. You'd be surprised. Minjun's expression darkened. My father built Kang Technologies from nothing, worked himself to death. Literally, heart attack at 52. He left me the company and the pressure to maintain his legacy. I was 23, barely finished with my master's degree, and suddenly responsible for 5,000 employees and their families. That must have been terrifying. It was suffocating. Everyone wanted something: money, favor, control. I learned fast that people only saw me as a means to an end. He paused as Mrs. Park returned with an abundance of dishes: bulgogi, japchae, kimchi, banchan, covering every inch of the table. Thank you, Uma, he said softly, and the older woman beamed. She likes you, Minjun said once she left. She told me in Korean that I should marry you immediately, that women who save lives make good wives. Isabella nearly choked on her tea. We just met yesterday. In Korean culture, that's irrelevant. When you know, you know. His slight smile was devastating. But don't worry, I'm not proposing tonight. I at least want to make it to dessert first. That's not funny. Who said I was joking? They ate and talked for hours. Minjun told her about growing up in Seoul, the pressure of being an only child, his complicated relationship with his mother who still lived in Korea and called daily to remind him he was failing at producing grandchildren. Isabella shared stories about her neighborhood, her mum's fierce independence, the way her younger brother Andre was finally thriving after years of struggling with dyslexia. She talked about the free clinic where she volunteered, how she still studied medical journals at night, even though she couldn't afford to return to school. "You never stopped being a nurse," Minjun observed. "You just can't practice officially." "I guess not. It's like," she struggled for words, "it's who I am. Helping people. Fixing broken things. Like broken billionaires who fall off cliffs? Especially those." She smiled, and something shifted between them. A warmth, an understanding, a connection that felt both new and ancient. When the check came, Minjun didn't even let Isabella see it, simply handed his card to Mrs. Park with instructions in Korean that made the woman laugh and wink at Isabella. "What did you tell her?" "That you tried to pay, but I refused because I'm traditional and stubborn." His eyes sparkled with mischief. She agreed with my assessment. Outside the restaurant, snow began falling softly. Minjun's driver waited by a sleek black car, but he made no move toward it, instead turning to face Isabella. "I have a confession to make," he said quietly. "Oh God, are you secretly married? In a cult? Involved in illegal—" "I'm falling for you." The words dropped between them like stones in still water. "I know it's too fast. I know it's impossible. But, Isabella, I can't stop thinking about you, about your courage, your kindness, the way you see past everything I've built around myself." "Minjun, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know, because tomorrow I'm flying to Seoul for business. I'll be gone for 2 weeks. And I wanted to tell you before I left that—" He stepped closer, carefully minding his injuries. "That you've woken something in me I thought was dead. Hope, maybe, or the belief that not everyone wants something from me." Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. "What do you want from me?" "Everything. Nothing. Just you, whatever that means." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Tell me I'm not insane. Tell me you feel this too. I think you hit your head harder than the doctors realized." "Isabella, I feel it too," she whispered. "And it terrifies me, because you're going to break my heart, Minjun. You're going to realize I'm just a waitress from Inglewood with student debt and second-hand clothes, that I don't fit in your world. My world is empty, sterile, full of people who smile and plot my downfall simultaneously." He leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. "You saved my life. You saw me bleeding and broken and climbed down a cliff anyway. That's worth more than anything in my world." "Minjun, if we do this, if we try, you have to promise me something." "Anything." "Be honest with me about everything, your business, the threats against you, whatever darkness you're hiding. I can handle a lot, but I can't handle lies. I promise. Complete honesty, no matter how ugly." He pressed his lips to her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her ache. "Wait for me? 2 weeks. When I come back, let's figure out what this is." "I'll wait." They stood in the falling snow, two people from impossible circumstances, finding something precious and fragile between them. When Minjun finally got into his car, Isabella watched until the taillights disappeared, then stood alone in the silence, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Minjun's plane touched down at LAX at 6 p.m. on a Friday. He'd been gone exactly 14 days, during which he'd closed 2 business deals, survived a board meeting that was essentially a verbal assassination attempt, and thought about Isabella approximately 800 times. He'd texted her daily, called when time zones allowed. Learned that she'd started back at nursing school part-time, that her mother was doing better on new medication his money had provided, that she was both grateful and uncomfortable with how much he'd changed her life in such a short time. And now, as his driver navigated LA traffic toward her apartment, Minjun felt something he hadn't experienced in years: nervousness. We're being followed, sir, his driver, Marcus, said quietly. Black SUV, 3 cars back, been with us since the airport. Minjun glanced in the side mirror, tension coiling through him. Lose them, don't lead them, to Isabella. What followed was 20 minutes of tactical driving through surface streets, doubled back routes, and finally ditching the car in a parking garage to transfer to a backup vehicle, Marcus called. Who do you think it is? Marcus asked as they finally headed toward Isabella's neighborhood via a circuitous route. Corporate spies or something worse? Won't know until GR's team runs the plates. But I'm not taking chances, not with Isabella. They arrived at her building after dark. Minjun took the stairs, his ankle nearly healed now, and knocked on her door at exactly 8:15 p.m. Isabella opened it, wearing yoga pants and an oversized t-shirt, hair wrapped in a scarf, no makeup, and somehow more beautiful than he remembered. You're early, she said, but she was smiling. I missed you. Couldn't wait. He'd meant to play it cool, but the truth came out anyway. Can I come in? You flew halfway around the world. I think you've earned entry. She stepped back, and Minjun caught the scent of something cooking, spices and warmth that made his chest ache with longing for something he'd never had, home. You're cooking? Attempting to cook, there's a difference. Isabella gestured to her tiny kitchen where pots bubbled on the hot plate. I'm making my mum's jerk chicken recipe. It's probably terrible, but I wanted to do something nice since you've been doing all the nice things. Minjun set down the shopping bags he'd brought, gifts from Seoul, things he'd seen and thought she'd like, and moved to stand behind her at the stove, close enough to feel her warmth, far enough to give her space. It smells amazing. You haven't tasted it yet. Might be poisonous. But she was nervous, he could tell. Hands slightly shaky as she stirred. How was Seoul? Complicated. My mother wants me to come home permanently. Take over the Asian operations. She has a list of suitable women she wants me to meet. Isabella's stirring faltered for just a second. Did you meet any of them? No. I told her I was seeing someone. He watched her reaction carefully. She demanded to know everything about you, your family, education, background. When I told her you saved my life, she said it was fate, that I had to marry you or dishonor the debt. Your mother sounds intense. She's traditional, but she's also right. Minjun's hands found Isabella's waist, turning her gently to face him. I spent 2 weeks in boardrooms and family dinners thinking about you, about this, and I realized something. What? That I'm done waiting, done being cautious. Life is too short and too uncertain. His hands cupped her face, thumbs stroking her cheeks. I want this, Isabella, want you, want to see where this goes without overthinking or analyzing. Minjun, we barely know each other. I know you risked your life for mine. I know you're brave and selfless and see past the money to who I really am. I know that talking to you feels like breathing after being underwater too long. He leaned closer, lips hovering just above hers. Tell me that's not enough to start with. It's terrifying is what it is. Then be terrified with me. He closed the distance, kissing her softly at first, then deeper when she melted into him. She tasted like hope and promises, and Minjun felt something long frozen inside him begin to thaw. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Isabella laughed shakily. The chicken's burning. Let it burn. Minjun! He let her go reluctantly, watching as she salvaged dinner with practiced efficiency. They ate on her futon, sitting close enough that their thighs touched, talking about everything and nothing. Minjun told her about Seoul's winter, the way his childhood home looked covered in snow. Isabella described her plans for nursing school, her dream of someday opening a clinic in her neighborhood where cost wasn't a barrier to care. I want to fund it, Minjun said. Your clinic, whatever you need, building, equipment, staff salaries. I want to make it happen. You can't just throw money at all my problems. Why not? I have more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me use it for something meaningful. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Let me invest in your dreams the way you've invested in my life. This is happening too fast. I almost died on that cliff, Isabella. Too fast isn't in my vocabulary anymore. His eyes held hers, intense, unwavering. I'm falling in love with you. Have been since you told me to shut up and climb. If that scares you, I'm sorry, but I'm done pretending I feel less than I do. Isabella stared at him. This impossible man who'd crashed into her life and turned everything upside down. She should push him away, protect her heart, maintain distance. Instead, she kissed him. This time it was slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both knew something fundamental had shifted between them. I'm falling for you too, Isabella whispered against his lips. Even though it's crazy, even though you're a billionaire and I'm nobody. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't diminish yourself. You're everything, Isabella, everything that matters. They spent the rest of the night on her futon, kissing and talking, and occasionally burning food they forgot about. And when Minjun finally left at 2 a.m., both knew they'd crossed a line there was no going back from. Things were perfect for exactly 3 weeks. Minjun took Isabella to art galleries and hole-in-the-wall restaurants, to charity galas where she wore borrowed dresses and held her own with billionaires, to quiet evenings in his penthouse where they cooked together and pretended the outside world didn't exist. He was making arrangements to move the company headquarters to LA permanently. She was acing her nursing classes and planning her future clinic. They were building something real, something beautiful. And then everything exploded. Isabella was leaving campus after a late study session when a black SUV pulled alongside her. The back window rolled down to reveal an older Korean man in an expensive suit, his expression cold, calculating. Miss Carter, get in. We need to talk about Kang Minjun. I don't get into cars with strangers. I'm not a stranger. I'm the reason Minjun almost died on that cliff. The man's smile was cruel. And if you value his life, you'll get in this car right now. Fear spiked through Isabella, but she forced herself to stay calm. Who are you? Choi Dae-sung. I'm Minjun's uncle. Well, former uncle. His father cut ties with me years ago over a business disagreement. The man's eyes glittered with malice. Now, I'm back to claim what should have been mine. Kang Technologies. And you, Miss Carter, are going to help me. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. By the time they arrive, Minjun will be dead. I have men watching his penthouse right now. One phone call from me, and they'll kill him. Dae-sung pulled out his phone, showing her a live feed of Minjun's building. So, I'll ask again, get in the car. Isabella's hands shook as she climbed into the SUV. The door locked automatically, and the vehicle pulled into traffic smoothly. What do you want from me? Simple. You're going to convince Minjun to sign over 51% of his company to me. Tell him you're in danger, that I'll kill you if he doesn't comply. Make it convincing. He'll never believe that. He'll fight back. Then he'll die, and you'll watch. Dae-sung's voice was matter-of-fact, chilling. I've already tried killing him once. Failed, thanks to you, but this time I'll succeed unless you do exactly what I say. Why do you hate him so much? His father stole everything from me, built his precious company using my ideas, my contacts, then cut me out when I objected to his methods. Dae-sung's expression twisted with bitterness. Minjun inherited an empire that should have been mine. Now I'm taking it back. They drove in silence for several minutes, Isabella's mind racing. She couldn't betray Minjun, but she couldn't let him die either. If I do this, she said slowly, you'll leave him alone? Let us live? Once I control the company, I don't need either of you. You
can ride off into the sunset together for all I care.
Dae-sung leaned forward. But if you refuse, or if you warn him, I'll make sure his death is slow, painful, and I'll make you watch every second. The SUV pulled up outside Minjun's building. Dae-sung handed Isabella a phone. You have 1 hour. Call him down here. Tell him you're in trouble. Then convince him to sign. The contracts are in your purse now. Isabella clutched the phone and purse, feeling the weight of impossible choices. If she went up there, warned Minjun, his security could protect them, but Dae-sung's men might attack. People could die. If she played along, Minjun would lose his company, everything his father built, the legacy he'd killed himself to maintain. There had to be a third option. I need to use the bathroom first, Isabella said, before I call him. You have 5 minutes. My men are watching. Dae-sung gestured to the building. Don't try anything clever. Isabella entered the lobby, mind racing. She had one chance to fix this. To save Minjun without sacrificing everything he'd worked for. She pulled out her phone and didn't call Minjun. She called GR. Miss Carter, is everything all right? No, listen carefully. I don't have much time. Isabella spoke quickly, keeping her voice low as she headed toward the bathroom. Choi Dae-sung just kidnapped me. He's outside the building with armed men. Wants me to get Minjun to sign over the company or he'll kill him. I need you to get Minjun out of here without Dae-sung knowing. Can you do that? GR's voice went cold, professional. Service exit. 3rd floor. I'll have a team there in 3 minutes. What's your location? 1st floor bathroom. I told them I needed 5 minutes. That's enough. Get to the 3rd floor. Don't use the main elevators. They're monitored. There's a freight elevator behind the maintenance door. Code is 4287. GR. If they realize I warned him, they won't. Trust me, Miss Carter. We're very good at what we do. Isabella ended the call and moved quickly, finding the maintenance door and punching in the code with shaking fingers. The freight elevator was old, slow, groaning ominously as it climbed. When the doors opened on the 3rd floor, GR was waiting with Minjun and 3 men in tactical gear. Isabella! Minjun moved to her immediately, cupping her face, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? What happened? Your uncle, he tried to use me to get to you, threatened to kill you if I didn't make you sign over the company. The words tumbled out. There are men outside watching your building. Minjun's expression went from concern to cold fury in seconds. How many? At least 4 in the SUV, maybe more positioned around the building. Isabella gripped his hands. Minjun, he said he's the one who caused your fall, that he's been trying to kill you. I know. We've suspected Dae-sung for months but couldn't prove it. Minjun turned to GR. Get her out of here. Take her somewhere safe. No! Isabella's voice was steel. I'm not running while you deal with this. Isabella, this is dangerous. I climbed down a cliff for you. I'm not abandoning you now. She met his eyes, unwavering. We face this together or not at all. Something flickered in Minjun's expression. Pride, love, resignation. Fine, but you stay with GR. You follow every instruction. Understand? Yes. What followed was a masterclass in tactical efficiency. GR's team, apparently ex-military security specialists, moved with silent precision. They contacted LAPD, who sent undercover units. They evacuated the building's residents through side exits, and they set a trap. Minjun walked out the front entrance alone, hands visible, moving slowly toward Dae-sung's SUV. Isabella watched from a tactical van parked 3 blocks away, heart in her throat. He's wearing body armor, GR said, noting Isabella's expression. And we have snipers positioned on surrounding buildings. He's safer than he looks. That's not comforting. On the screen, they watched Minjun approach the SUV. Dae-sung exited, flanked by his men. The two faced each other, and even without audio, the tension was visible. Then Minjun did something unexpected. He smiled and raised his phone, showing Dae-sung the screen. Whatever Dae-sung saw made his expression crumble. His men drew weapons, but before they could fire, LAPD units swarmed from every direction. Tactical teams appeared from nowhere. The entire operation was over in less than 90 seconds. "What did he show him?" Isabella asked. GR's smile was satisfied. "Proof? We've been building a case against Dae-sung for months. Corporate espionage, attempted murder, fraud. Tonight, he confessed to threatening you on a recording device Miss Carter was carrying." "I was what?" "Your purse. I placed a tracker and recorder in it when you called. Legal, since you consent to being recorded for your own protection." GR tapped her tablet. "His confession combined with the other evidence we've gathered. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." Isabella sagged with relief, adrenaline leaving her system in a rush. "It's really over?" "The immediate threat is there will be trials, legal proceedings, but Dae-sung won't threaten Mr. Kang again." GR's expression softened slightly. "You were brave, Miss Carter. Quick thinking to call me instead of doing what Dae-sung demanded." "I learned from the best." Isabella watched the screen as Minjun spoke with police officers. His posture relaxed now. The danger passed. "Is he okay?" "See for yourself." The van door opened, and Minjun climbed in, immediately pulling Isabella into his arms. "Never do that again. Never put yourself in danger for me." "You literally just walked into an ambush." "That's different." "How?" "Because I can't lose you." His voice broke. "Isabella, when GR told me Dae-sung had taken you, He couldn't finish, just held her tighter. "I'm okay, we're okay." She pulled back to look at him. "Is it really over?" "This part is. But there will be others. There always are when you have what people want." Minjun cupped her face. "I can't promise you safety. I can't promise you normal. But I can promise I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of the woman who saved me." "You already are." They kissed, while GR discreetly stepped out of the van, giving them privacy. And in that moment, surrounded by tactical equipment and police lights, Isabella understood that this messy, complicated, dangerous love was exactly what she'd been searching for all along. The grand opening of Carter Community Health Center was everything Isabella had dreamed of and more. The 3-story building gleamed in the Los Angeles sunshine, its walls painted in warm colors chosen to feel welcoming rather than clinical. Inside, state-of-the-art equipment filled examination rooms, while the waiting area looked more like a comfortable living room than a hospital. Isabella stood at the entrance, wearing a simple blue dress, watching her neighbours file in for the free health fair. Mrs. Johnson from down the street, the Garcia family who ran the corner store, teenagers from the youth centre, all people who'd been priced out of adequate health care until now. "Proud of you." Valencia squeezed her shoulder. "You did this, Bella. Minjun did this. Minjun wrote the checks. You had the vision." Valencia's smile was knowing. "Speaking of your billionaire boyfriend." Isabella turned to see Minjun crossing the parking lot, now walking without any trace of his injuries from 6 months ago. He wore dark jeans and a simple sweater, trying to blend in, though his bearing and the sleek Aston Martin he drove rather defeated the purpose. "How's it going?" he asked, sliding an arm around her waist. "Perfect. We've already seen 40 patients." Isabella leaned into him, marveling at how natural it felt now. "Dr. Martinez says we might need to extend hours." "Done. Whatever you need." Minjun pressed a kiss to her temple. "Have you shown your mum yet?" As if summoned, Diana Carter emerged from the building, moving slowly but smiling widely. She'd aged visibly over the years of illness, but new medication and reduced stress had brought colour back to her cheeks. "Baby girl, this is incredible." Diana pulled Isabella into a hug. "Your daddy would be so proud." "I wish he could see it." He can, I'm sure of it. Diana turned to Minjun, expression softening. And you, young man, thank you. You've given my daughter something I couldn't, the chance to finish what she started. She gave me my life back, Mrs. Carter. This is the least I can do. Minjun's accent grew slightly thicker with emotion, as it always did when he was moved. Though I should thank you, you raised an extraordinary woman. I raised a stubborn one. The extraordinary part she did herself. Diana squeezed his hand. But I'm glad she found you, someone who sees her worth. Later that evening, after the health fair ended and the last visitors had left, Isabella and Minjun stood alone in what would be her office. Diplomas hung on the wall, her nursing degree completed just last month, and her acceptance letter to medical school starting in the fall. You're really going to be Dr. Carter, Minjun said, pulling her close. Has a nice ring to it. Long way to go still. 4 years of medical school, residency. Isabella shook her head. I'll be 35 before I'm a full doctor, and I'll be there for every step, every late-night study session, every exam, every moment you doubt yourself. He tipped her chin up. You saved my life, Isabella. Let me spend mine supporting yours. That's a pretty big commitment for someone who's technically just my boyfriend. About that, Minjun pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. I was planning to wait, to do this at dinner with flowers and music and some grand romantic gesture. But standing here in the clinic you built, with your mother's blessing still warm in my ears, he pulled out a small velvet box. This moment feels right. Isabella's breath caught as he dropped to one knee, right there in her tiny office with its second-hand desk and cheerful yellow walls. Isabella Carter, 6 months ago you climbed down a cliff despite your fear of heights, to save a stranger who probably didn't deserve saving. You've shown me what true courage looks like, what selfless love means, what it feels like to be seen for who I really am, not what I can provide. His voice grew thick with emotion. You've made me want to be better, do better, build something meaningful beyond just profit margins. He opened the box, revealing a ring that took her breath away, a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones, set in delicate platinum, elegant but not ostentatious. Marry me, build a life with me, let me spend the rest of my days trying to deserve the woman who saved me in every possible way. His eyes held hers, vulnerable, hopeful, terrified. Please say yes. Minjun, Isabella's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. You know I'm going to be broke for the next decade, right? Medical school debt is insane. I'll pay for it. I'm going to be studying all the time. No social life. Exhausted constantly. I'll bring you coffee and force you to take breaks. Your mother wants you to marry some nice Korean girl with the right pedigree. My mother will love you once she meets you. And if she doesn't, I don't care. You're the one I choose. He stood, still holding the ring. Stop trying to talk me out of this and give me an answer. Yes. The word burst out of her, joy and fear and love all tangled together. Yes, you impossible man. I'll marry you. Minjun slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with enough passion to make her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both were laughing and crying simultaneously. I love you, he said against her lips, from the moment you told me to shut up and climb. I love you too, even though you're dramatic and stubborn and perfect for you. Unfortunately, yes. They stood in the quiet office, holding each other as the sun set outside, painting the walls in shades of gold and pink. In the distance, Isabella could hear her neighborhood coming alive. Music, laughter, the sounds of life that had seemed so overwhelming just months ago. Now it sounded like home. Thank you, Minjun whispered into her hair, for saying yes, for saving me in every possible way. Isabella pulled back to look at him. This man who'd crashed into her life in the most dramatic fashion possible, who'd challenged her to dream bigger and believe she deserved more than survival. "We saved each other," she corrected. "Now let's see what we can build together." The wedding took place at Summit Ridge Resort, on the very hiking trail where their story began. Minjun had purchased the resort 6 months earlier, officially to prevent it from being demolished for condos, unofficially so he could make sure the safety equipment on the trails was top of the line and the employees were properly compensated. Rick Paulson had been fired on day 1 of the new ownership. Tasha was now the manager, with a salary that reflected her dedication and competence. Isabella stood at the trailhead in a dress that combined traditional Korean hanbok elements with modern bridal style, white silk with delicate gold embroidery, elegant but comfortable enough to walk the mountain path. Valencia stood beside her as maid of honor, dabbing at her eyes with expensive tissues. "You sure about this?" Valencia whispered. "Last chance to run. Never been more sure of anything." Isabella squeezed her hand. "Except maybe climbing down that cliff. Still can't believe that's how you met your future husband. Girl, your life is a drama." "Our life? You're my sister, V. You get dragged into all of it." They walked together up the path, following scattered white rose petals until they reached the overlook where everything had changed. Minjun stood there waiting, wearing a traditional Korean hanbok himself, black and silver, stunning in its simplicity. His mother stood beside him, having flown in from Seoul with what seemed like half their extended family. The ceremony was conducted in both English and Korean, honouring both their cultures. When it came time for vows, Isabella's voice shook but held strong. "Minjun, you crashed into my life, literally, and changed everything. You showed me that sometimes the bravest thing isn't rushing in to save someone. It's letting yourself be saved in return." She gripped his hands, tears flowing freely now. "You've supported my dreams, respected my choices, and loved me even when I'm impossible. I promise to stand beside you through every challenge, to climb every cliff, to choose you every day for the rest of our lives." Minjun's voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. "Isabella, you taught me what true courage looks like, what it means to love without calculation or fear. You've given me a life worth living instead of just surviving." He raised her hands to his lips. "In Korean culture, we believe that saving someone's life creates a bond that transcends this lifetime. You are my bond, my heart, my home. I promise to honor you, protect you, and spend every day trying to be the man you see when you look at me. Thank you for choosing me, for saving me, for loving me." When the minister pronounced them married, the applause echoed through the mountains. Minjun kissed Isabella like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried out as if blessing their union. The reception was held at the resort, transformed into a space that celebrated both their backgrounds. Korean food and Southern soul food, K-pop and R&B, guests in everything from traditional hanbok to elegant suits. Isabella's mother danced with Minjun's mother, both women laughing and bonding over their impossible children. As the evening wound down, Isabella and Minjun slipped away from the crowd, walking back to the overlook one more time. The moon illuminated the valley below, turning everything silver and ethereal. "Have any regrets?" Minjun asked, pulling her close. "About marrying you?" "Never." Isabella leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against her back. "About climbing down that cliff? Sometimes, still terrified of heights. And yet you did it anyway. That's what makes you extraordinary." He turned her to face him. "I have something for you." He pulled out a key, simple and unremarkable. Isabella took it, confused. "What's this?" "The deed to a building 3 blocks from your clinic." Perfect size for a teaching hospital. Thought we could build it together. You handle the medical side, I handle the funding. Create something that lasts beyond both of us. Isabella stared at the key, then at her husband, this impossible man who kept finding new ways to surprise her. A teaching hospital. You wanted to help people and teach the next generation. This way you can do both. His smile was soft, vulnerable. What do you say, Dr. Kang? I say you're insane. She kissed him deeply. I say yes. I say I love you more than I thought was possible to love anyone. That's all I needed to hear. They stood together on the mountain, the place where their story began, and looked toward a future they would build together. Below them, Los Angeles glittered with possibility. Behind them, their wedding guests celebrated the union of two impossible people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. And somewhere in the wind, if you listened carefully, you could hear the echo of that day 6 months ago when Isabella Carter climbed down a cliff to save a stranger and in doing so, saved herself. Isabella pushed through the doors of Kang Carter Memorial Hospital. Exhausted but exhilarated after a 12-hour shift, the teaching hospital had opened 2 years ago and was already making waves in the medical community for its innovative approach to healthcare and education. She found Minjun in the main lobby, standing beside a bronze statue. The sculpture depicted 2 figures, a man clinging to a cliff face, a woman reaching down to pull him to safety. The plaque beneath read, "In memory of the moment everything changed, may we always have the courage to climb down." Waiting long? Isabella slipped her hand into his. Just got here. Thought I'd remind myself how lucky I am. He kissed her forehead. How was your day? Saved 3 lives, taught 6 residents, drank approximately 1 gallon of coffee. She leaned into him tiredly. Yours? Board meeting, new acquisition in Seoul, fielded 40 calls from my mother asking when we're giving her grandchildren. His smile was wry, the usual. About that, Isabella pulled out a folded piece of paper from her pocket. I have news. Minjun opened it, and his expression transformed from curious to stunned to absolutely radiant in seconds. The ultrasound image showed a tiny bean-shaped form, barely visible but undeniably there. We're pregnant, his voice cracked. 8 weeks. Surprise. Isabella watched his face, memorizing every emotion that crossed it. I know we said we'd wait until I finished residency, but apparently our daughter had other plans. Daughter? Mother's intuition or wishful thinking. We won't know for sure for another month. She touched his face gently. Are you happy? Happy? Minjun pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet, despite her protests about his back. Isabella, I'm everything. You keep giving me everything. They stood in the hospital they'd built together, beneath a statue commemorating the day they met, holding the promise of their future between them. Around them, doctors and nurses hurried past. Patients walked with families, and life continued in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Isabella thought about that terrified girl who'd climbed down a cliff 6 years ago, driven by instinct and courage she didn't know she possessed, who'd saved a stranger and accidentally found her soulmate, who'd built a life beyond her wildest dreams. Thank you, she whispered against Minjun's chest. For what? For falling off that cliff, for choosing me, for this impossible, beautiful life. Minjun laughed, the sound full of joy and wonder. I'd fall 1,000 times if it meant finding you at the bottom. They kissed there in the lobby. 2 people who'd saved each other in every way that mattered, and who would spend the rest of their lives grateful for the cliff that brought them together. The end. Thank you for watching till the very end. You are the best. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more Afro-Korean romance content. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from.